Okay, ready?
Mhm.
Okay. So on September 12th, the day after 9/11, the Chief of Naval Operations got everybody together, the senior people in the Navy, and basically gave a wartime speech. It said, "We're a nation at war. Everything changed yesterday, and be ready because the Navy's going to be, in the lead in fighting this fight." That afternoon, the Pentagon got hit shortly after 9 a.m. By that afternoon, there were aircraft carriers already transiting towards the Persian Gulf, off the coast of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And so my life drastically changed. It changed my mindset, and it changed my career. Literally, I think everything changed. It became much more serious at that point.
Were you aware that the planes had hit the World Trade Center prior to hitting the Pentagon? Did you know about it?
Yeah, so because I'm in public affairs and media relations, I had a television in my office. And I watched as the news reports started talking about a plane had run into the World Trade Center. And they were speculating that it was a private plane that had been flying around the World Trade Center too close. Because, the World Trade Center, as the rebuilt one is now, they were an icon in New York City. I mean, they were huge, they rose above everything else. And so the speculation was that a private plane had flown too close. And I think just a couple days before that, somebody had parachuted off, like as a stunt. And so for the first, 10 or 15 minutes, there was speculation that it was, a private pilot had made a mistake. And then I happened to be watching as Katie Couric on NBC Today show was talking about it, and she had video of the World Trade Center behind her, and live, and I literally saw a plane fly across the screen into the other World Trade Center.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my gosh, and that's when everything became really real. And so in our suite of offices, there were 4 offices inside the suite and then a reception area. And my office was on one end, and in the middle area there was a big office with about 6 cubes in it, and then 2 other offices down on the end. And so everybody in my office congregated into the middle area where there was a bigger TV, and we were watching. And it was pretty clear that this had been an attack, and that it wasn't a mistake by a private pilot. And we started speculating, geez, this could happen in the Pentagon. A plane could come out of National Airport, which is right down the street, and run in and crash into the Pentagon. But we really didn't, I have to say, we didn't think it would happen. I mean, it was just a conversation. And so we did that for a while, and then we had a big project that was due the next day. And so I started thinking, well, geez, we can't just watch this all day. We gotta get to work. So I said, all right, everybody, let's go back to work and finish the project. But as the words were leaving my mouth, I thought, geez, that's really wrong. We've been attacked. I need to do something for my team to kind of get everybody's head back, together and let them think about it. So for the first time in my life, I said, but first let's go down and get a cup of coffee. I'll treat everybody to a cup of coffee. And so everybody that worked in those 4 offices got up and walked out, and the receptionist said, hey, I'll stay back here and answer the phones. And she was standing at the door into the hallway, and we were about a tractor trailer's length away from the door to the office when the plane hit about a tractor trailer's length the opposite direction. And the last thing I saw was smoke and this huge explosion. It took me about a second to realize it was a plane. At first, sometimes you hear noise in the Pentagon, pallets of supplies dropping or something like that. This was way bigger, and so we knew pretty quickly that we had been hit by a plane.
Yeah. That basically answered my next question. So after after the Pentagon was what? So you said your immediate reaction was just like you were shocked, but like after you got out and figured out that it was an attack, what was your immediate reaction? What did you do?
So, it's very interesting, and you never know how you're going to react in a time like this. So, I had a broken toe, so I had a bootie on my foot, a regular shoe, and we had, immediately the black smoke and the burning dust was everywhere, and I could hear screaming inside the black dust, inside the black smoke, and so part of me was, I got to run in there and see what I can do. And then I realized, well, first of all, I've got a broken toe, and it was very painful. And then the second thing is, I thought to myself, I've got 2 children, I've got to get to my children. And then probably within 10 seconds of the explosion, I thought to myself, I've got to get out of here. I've got to go. I don't know how my children are doing. I don't know what this means. I don't know what's going on. And I just had this insatiable desire to see my children, who at the time were a sophomore and a senior in high school.
Yeah, great. So, did you feel comfortable or uncomfortable going back to work after 9/11?
That's an interesting question. We all had to go through mandatory counseling. We didn't have a choice, and which I thought was a very good move, and it was very well done. Everybody that was together got back together in a room, and we had the opportunity to share all of our experiences, and then if we wanted to, we could do individual counseling. And in the group counseling, it was very informative because I had done things that I didn't know I had done. I guess there was a lot of screaming at one point, and I guess I shouted and I didn't remember, but everybody in the room remembered it. I guess I yelled at one point, "Everybody shut up and let's go." And so, and I guess that was really calming for people. And I think that, I've always lived with that felt good that I had done that. 'Cause it was instinct, it was, it was a calming, I did it in a calming way, and it was like, okay, let's just go in that direction. And I think as a result of that counseling, and as a result of the fact that we were, the Chief of Naval Operations was very clear, we are a nation at war, that I wasn't worried about going. I went back in the Pentagon the next day, while it was actually still on fire in the roof, in the attic, and retrieved some stuff. And it didn't really, I wasn't scared. I will tell you, I have lived a little bit with, people ask, geez, were you in the Pentagon on 9/11? Well, I was, but I wasn't even scratched.
Yeah.
I mean, I was fine. And other people, some of my friends passed away, and other ones of my friends have injuries that have affected them the rest of their life. So for some people who weren't injured, they couldn't go back in the building, and they moved on to other jobs because they could never forget. To this day, the smell of the Pentagon on fire is a very distinctive smell for me. And if I smell anything similar to it, it brings me right back to that time.
All right. So what do you think we, like the U.S. as a nation, can learn from the attacks on 9/11?
I think there's so much
Yeah.
to learn from an attack like that. I think the first thing we need to take away from it is that we are an incredibly diverse world, and we're very fortunate, and that not everybody in this world appreciates, likes, or supports the way we live. And I think hopefully the world learned, I know I learned after that we need to pay attention to more people. I didn't know hardly anything about the Muslim faith before that happened. And I remember after 9/11, I felt bad about that I knew it was extremists that had done it, not the average Muslim, but I thought, geez, I want to reach out to people of Muslim faith, so I would start seeking them out and talking to them. And I also didn't want them to feel that that white Americans were now mad at them because I didn't think it was, you know, American Muslims that had done it, and or the average Muslim. And I would talk to people, and they would really appreciate it. And then one time I said to somebody, I said, clearly a Muslim, I met him in a store, and I said, so how are you doing after 9/11? And he looked at me and goes, I'm doing great. And that caught me off guard. And I said, what do you mean you're doing great? And he says, I'm really sorry for all the people that died. And I'm really sorry for everything that's going on. But before 9/11, he looked right at me in the eye and he said, before 9/11, you would not have talked to me. And I think he was right. And it's unfortunate that it took an event like that to cause a lot of people to open their eyes. I think another thing that I learned from it is the world supported the United States that day.
Yeah.
Around the world, with very minor exceptions. And I think history will show, you know, did we overreact or did we not? I think in 2015 it's too early to answer that question. I definitely think it's worth the debate. And as we move forward and things going on in the world that other nations are affected by, I think that's a very important lesson to make sure that you react properly.
Yeah. All right. So, how do you think the people in 50 years will look at the attacks? So 50 years from now, how do you think people will? Do you think people will still commemorate what happened? Do you think people will still look back on it and think, "Wow, what if that could happen today?" What do you think will happen?
I definitely think that 9/11 is up there with Pearl Harbor Day. That I think September 11th and December 7th will both live in this country as significant days. And I hope that's the case because, you know, we can never forget. If you forget and you don't learn from history, then it's a problem. The other thing is I hope we never forget the lives that have been lost, the lives that were lost in the World Trade Center and in the airplanes and in the Pentagon and in Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, you know, roughly 7,000 people have now died as a result of 9/11 or the combat hostilities that have gone on. So I don't think we can ever forget their ultimate sacrifice for the freedom of this country.
Yeah. Do you think, so the World Trade Center was also bombed in 1993. Do you think that foreshadowed or impacted the attacks on 9/11?
I think the intelligence and I think history demonstrates that, in fact, the bombing of the World Trade Center in 93 and then later the airplane attack are connected. And I think it is, again, another lesson in history where whether you look at that or you look at the bombing of the USS Cole in October of 2000, not only are they connected, but I think the United States missed a lesson. I think we missed some indicators that there were things going on. And, you know, like in business or home life, you've always got to be thinking about the things you're not thinking about. And I think history will show that in the 90s, we quit paying attention to what could happen or what was happening that we didn't want to accept.